Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Terence Dial Singh, Minister of Health, the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, members of the Cabinet, His Worship, Alderman Joel Martinez, Mayor of the City of Port of Spain, Mr. Asif Ali, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, Mr. Michael Reed and Ms. Melanie Noel, Deputy Permanent Secretaries at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Roshan Parasram, Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Mariam Abdul Richards, Principal Medical Officer, Dr. David Ibelebe, Principal Medical Officer, Environmental Health, Dr. Erica Wheeler, PAHO Country Representative, executives of the various regional health authorities, Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of UDICOT, members of the board, Chief Executive Officer Mr. Mika Charles, management and staff of UDICOT, Mr. Emil Elias, Chairman of Asclepius Holdings Limited, management, staff and consultant of Asclepius Holdings Limited and NH International, Caribbean Limited, senior executives of Republic Bank, JMMB, Sagicor, Waterloo Capital, and Guardian Life Insurance, captains of industry and commerce, specially invited guests, members of the media, members of the national public viewing live on TTT, UDICOT's Facebook page, and listening on I-95.5 FM, Talk City 91.1 FM, and WAC Radio 90.1 FM. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the official handover and opening ceremony of the new Ministry of Health Administrative Building. I'm your host, Marc-Andre Augustus. To begin our function today, I call on our first citizen, His Worship Alderman Joel Martinez, Mayor of the City of Port of Spain, to deliver the opening remarks.
Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Terence Dial Singh, Minister of Health, the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, members of Cabinet, Mr. Asril Ali, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Father Gregory Augustin, former Principal of Fatima, and Captain of Industries, members of all government institutions, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow citizens, a warm and hearty welcome to this momentous occasion and official handover ceremony for the new Ministry of Health Administrative Building. As the Mayor of Port of Spain, I am delighted to stand before you today to celebrate a remarkable milestone in our city's progress and the nation's commitment to the health and well-being of our people. This stunning new building is a testament to the power of collective vision and dedication to serving our community. It represents a new era of healthcare administration where innovation and efficiency will converge to enhance the delivery of vital services of our citizens. Beyond its sleek architecture and state-of-the-art facility, this building is a symbol of hope and resilience, reminding us that we are capable of overcoming challenges and nurturing a healthier and happy society. In a world where complexities and uncertainties abound, the pursuit of knowledge and intellectual excellence becomes even more critical. This building stands as a citadel of wisdom, a place where great minds will come together to unravel the mysteries of medicine, develop groundbreaking treatments, and find solutions to the health challenges of today and tomorrow. As we gather here today, let us reflect on the profound impact the Ministry of Health has on each of our lives, from safeguarding our well-being during times of crisis to ensuring equitable access to quality health care. The ministry serves as the guardian of our most precious asset, our health. With this new administrative building, we reaffirm our commitment to fostering a culture of compassion and collaboration that places the health and happiness of our people at the forefront. However, this moment would not be complete without acknowledging the dedication of the countless individuals who have worked tirelessly to bring this project to fruition. From the architects and engineers who have designed a magnificent structure, to the laborers who have labored to bring it to life, and to the public servant who will soon occupy its halls. Thank you. Your commitment to excellence and unwavering service inspires us all. As we celebrate this milestone today, let us look at the future and optimism and hope. Together, let us continue to invest in our people. Let us invest in our capital city. Let us invest in the architecture and our landscape, our healthcare infrastructure, the knowledge of our citizens. By doing so, we shall build a healthier and happier and more resilient Port-of-Spain and a nation. In conclusion, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for gracing the occasion with your presence. Let us cherish this day as a reminder of what we can achieve when we join hands in a common cause. May the new Ministry of Health administrative building be a beacon of progress and enlightenment for generations to come. Thank you, and may we continue to thrive together on this incredible journey of growth and prosperity for our nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Martinez. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome to the podium the Honorable Stuart Richard Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Member of Parliament for Port-of-Spain North, St. Anne's West, to bring us his remarks.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Good afternoon, everyone. To Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, to my cabinet colleague, the Honorable Terence Dial Singh, the Minister of Health, to His Worship, the Alderman Joel Martinez, Mayor of the City of Port-of-Spain, to Mr. Asif Ali, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Health, to the Deputy Permanent Secretaries and all of the other executive members of the Ministry of Health, all of the executive members of the various regional health authorities who are present with us today, to Mr. Noel Garcia, the Chairman of UDCOT, as well as all of the executives of UDCOT, to Mr. Emil Elias, the Chairman of Asalifas Holdings Limited. I know I didn't get that pronunciation right. And NH Caribbean Limited. To everyone else present here this afternoon, to members of the media, specially invited guests, thank you all for your presence here this afternoon. My remarks are very brief, and I bring these remarks as a proud member of Parliament for Port-of-Spain North, St. Anne's West, where this magnificent building sits today. It is indeed a moment of pride as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago to see this building completed and to be part of the cabinet that took the decision to, in fact, build this building in a bold arrangement that I'm sure we'll hear more about later on today. And as a member of Parliament, I would really sincerely like to thank the Prime Minister for his vision in reinforcing that Port-of-Spain is the capital of Trinidad and Tobago. And in the last 8 years, you all would have seen significant decisions and proper use of our taxpayers' money just driving around the savannah to see what has happened in the 8 years to ensure first the restoration of buildings of the Magnificent Seven, the Whitehall, Killarney Castle, the QRC, Mille Fleurs, the President's House. And as we come around now today to see this magnificent building join us on this side of the savannah. And just behind, those of you who can look behind, you'll see another project that I'm particularly grateful for, which is a Belmont Community Center that was also built under this government, that I am sure is one of the most utilized community centers in Trinidad and Tobago. It has made a huge difference to the people in Belmont, and in particular, those associated. A couple quick messages. One, we took a decision as a cabinet to build this building in a bold arrangement where we will own, as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, this building one day. And that was a very brave, courageous, and proper decision that once again came out of this government. And it will do a significant amount for us as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I just ask that we properly maintain the building. I'm sure that we will. And that we continue to take the right decisions that will help Trinidad and Tobago. Because what we're going to do is own the asset at the end of the day. The next and my last comment for this afternoon is really to thank you at the Ministry of Health. My colleague, the Minister of Health, provided leadership through very difficult times in the last few years as we managed COVID, and to all of the members of staff of the Ministry of Health, because as a citizen, I know how important that role that you all played was for us. And today we have delivered to you one of the most state-of-the-art buildings, I'm sure, in the whole CARICOM region. And that indeed is a tribute to what you all have done at the Ministry of Health. And we just ask that you continue to maintain the asset on our behalves. UDCOT, thank you for a project well done once again. And Prime Minister, anything more that you want to do for the constituency of Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West, I would welcome, as I have been a very quiet member of Cabinet, never asking for much. So thank you all very much for your attention, and thank you to Mr. Elias and your team for delivering what you did, and to everyone who contributed in making today the reality that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Young. I do believe Asclepius is the Greek god of medicine. Do I have that right? Ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome the Wasafoli drummers. Wasafoli. Thank you. Thank you, Wassa Foley. Thank you, Wassa Foley. I now call on the Honorable Terence Dial Singh, Minister of Health, to bring us his remarks.
Thank you very much, Andre. Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, my cabinet colleague, the Honorable Stuart Richard Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. I would like to also recognize Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of UDICOT, Mr. Emil Elias, who constructed this building. Thank you, sir. All other protocols having been established, we observe them. I'm going to start with a quote from a very great philosopher, and I expect someone from the audience to tell me who said it. It was the 3rd of September, that day I'll always remember. Nobody? You all are too young. It's the opening lines from a song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Sounds familiar now? The reason I say this is that the Ministry of Health and its divisions have been rolling stones for decades. The Ministry of Health head office has been knocking from pillar to post all over Port of Spain for the last 20 or 30 years. Its divisions have been knocking from pillar to post all over Port of Spain for decades. So we were, in fact, rolling stones. As Minister Young said in thanking the Honorable Prime Minister for his vision, I also want to add my congratulations to Dr. Rowley for supporting me as Minister of Health in getting this building done, in supporting the cabinet position, in supporting the cabinet note. Because this concept and this vision has been spoken about since the 1990s. And here we are today, on the 7th of August, 2023, realizing a dream. And it could only have been done with the support of the Chairman of the Cabinet, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, the amalgamation of all our divisions under one roof is surely something that we should be happy about. I could tell you, having managed COVID, when I had to have my usual emergency meetings, Corpcom had to come from Park Street in the rain, Dr. Hines had to come from Sacred Heart, epidemiology had to come from somewhere else. It was just a nightmare. Paho had to come from Sweetbriar Road. But now with everyone under one roof, we can realize a certain degree of synergy and hopefully optimal performance. With this building, 7 stories tall, we are now going to house 16 divisions from 7 rented locations. And I'll just give you some example. I wouldn't go through all. We are renting at 62 Abercrombie Street for NADAP, Park Street, the head office, Sacred Heart Building, renting, ground floor, St. Vincent Street and Park Streets, first floor, corner St. Vincent Street and Park Street, by Green Corner for those of you of a particular vintage, Paho, Sweetbriar Road, Port of Spain, and the administrative arm of Chemistry, Food and Drugs at 92 Frederick Street, Port of Spain. They are all now going to be under one roof. One roof. This building of approximately 112,258 square feet can accommodate 800 persons. And as the first citizen, sorry, Mayor, may I recognize you too. And as the first citizen of Port of Spain said, hopefully this will lead to excellence, and it will. Our 2030 National Development Strategy for Trinidad and Tobago talks about infrastructural development. And although this building is not an RHA building, we are in the catchment area of Northwest RHA. So as far as infrastructure, Bringing excellence, what else are we doing and what else have we done? We built the Diego Martin Health Center. It is one of the most ideal health centers in the world. It is like a mini hospital. It has been lauded far and wide. We put down the new LINAC at St. James at $81 million. And right now, we are installing in St. James a brand new MRI, which is a gift from PPGPL to finish off their gift to the nation for cancer treatment. So St. James, in addition to the LINAC, will now have their own dedicated MRI for oncology. We put down recently a brand new CT in Port of Spain General Hospital. So the days when you can't get a CT at Port of Spain General should be over. It's a brand new 128 CT slice CT to supplement the old containerized CT. And last but not least, the crowning jewel in health to be opened in early 2025. And again, the role of the Honorable Prime Minister cannot be underestimated in this, because he himself supported the building of a 540 13-story central block tower now under construction. That is to tell you the importance that the cabinet under the chairmanship of Dr. Rowley puts on health. So this is the health infrastructure for the city of Port of Spain, our capital city, as Minister Young said. A place where on any given day, the population coming into work, residing here is close to 300,000 persons. So this infrastructure, including Central Block, is much needed. This facility, and I'm going to challenge the Honorable Prime Minister now, has a gym. So I hope the Honorable Prime Minister, who lives 60 seconds away, please feel free to use the gym. Minister Young, as MP, you can also use the gym. What I'm particularly proud about with this building, as we push certain policies like breastfeeding, this building has a lactation room. And that is something I am particularly proud about. So when mothers come back from maternity leave, they can breastfeed their babies here. We are pushing that as part of our thrust towards managing non-communicable diseases. With this ceremonial opening today, it is more than ceremonial because the actual move now has to take place. We are going to start to move in phases over the next 2 to 3 months with division by division. The first division to come in will be ICT, and then the last division to come in will be the Minister of Health. Yeah, I am last. Everything else is carded week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all goes according to plan. The move, which is due to begin in the upcoming weeks, should be finished by around the end of September into October. So it's going to be a phased move. We are not moving everybody at the same time. Before I close, I think the taxpayer of this country needs to know how their monies have been spent. Currently, in the locations which I called out, we pay $1,045,978.93 in rent. And we have been paying rent for decades with nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing. So the taxpayer has gotten nothing tangible. With this concept, with this bold design, build, own, lease, transfer, the total sum approved by Cabinet was $471,307,920. That's the value. The payback per month, the lease per month, is going to be $2,618,377, VAT exclusive. But at the end of 15 years, the taxpayer will own this. It will be yours. It will redound to the benefit of the country at large. because you will have something tangible at the end of 15 years. When one considers how much hundreds of millions of dollars we have paid in rent, rolling from one location like the Rolling Stone, remember Papa was at Rolling Stone, and now we have nothing to show for it. So that is basically, in a nutshell, what the building is about, what it can do, what it brings to the community. And in closing, again, I want to recognize the vision of our Prime Minister in championing this project. Prime Minister, on behalf of all the employees at the Ministry of Health, I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Dayal Singh. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now be entertained by pan soloist from the BP Renegades camp, Mr. Emmanuel Joseph. Thank you, Emmanuel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my signal honor to welcome to the lectern the Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, to deliver today's feature address.
Thank you very much, Andrew. See, even prime ministers can learn. Your Worship, the Mayor of the City of Port of Spain, Alderman Joel Martinez, my cabinet colleague, the Minister of Health, Honorable Terence Dialsing, Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, and the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, appropriators and assumed owners of the location of this property. My other cabinet colleagues, Mr. Asif Ali, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, Mr. Michael Reed and Ms. Melanie Noel, Deputy Permanent Secretaries of the Ministry of Health, Dr. Erica Wheeler, PAHO WHO Country Representative, executives of various regional health authorities, Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of UDICOT and the management staff of UDICOT and other staff members, Mr. Emily Elias, contractor, and I presume key personnel in Asclepius Limited. That's a new name that we have to add to the list of private sector entities that come forward and do things for the government. And I hope that is not an attraction to the kinds of commentary that we hear from time to time. Welcome to Asclepius. Distinguished guests, all members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a very special day for the Ministry of Health and for me as Prime Minister, leader of the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago. I would always say that, notwithstanding the fact that we are having some improved arrangements in many quarters, that this period of service, 2015 to now, has been singularly one of the most difficult periods in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, because we have become accustomed over the years to a certain level of government expenditure, which reflects itself in the size of a certain economy and activity in a certain economy and the quality of life of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But dating back to 2014, we were experiencing some significant reduction in our revenues. And once your revenue begins to contract, all kinds of adjustments are required. In fact, in the period 2014 going on 2015, 2016, it was not uncommon to hear some prognosticators and some analysts and experts raising the specter of an IMF program for Trinidad and Tobago. We haven't heard that recently, but it is there as an undercurrent. However, during that period, a deliberate decision was taken by the government of Trinidad and Tobago that we will do more with what we had available to us, doing more with less, and also we'll come up with innovative ways of mobilizing what we have available to us. And one of the ways of mobilizing local resources is to get the private sector involved in national development outside of what they have been accustomed to. And one of the conversations about private sector involvement in mobilizing, especially financing for public sector desirables, is this whole question of public-private partnership called PPP, meaning that the government has some resources to put into the projects or their programs, and the private sector has some resources. It may not be the same resource for every project, but once there are elements of the private sector who have access to resources, sometimes not just have the resources available, but have the ability to raise the resources, and they're willing to partner with the government, then many good things can happen to the country at this time, rather than waiting for some decades later when the government would have saved enough to do it, or the government has the borrowing room to do it. I could tell you that the ability of the government to borrow for development projects during the period I just mentioned, that period that we came in 2015 to recently, that ability to borrow for development projects was very, very restricted, because the government's first priority had to do with maintaining life and limb. It had to do with keeping all the schools open, all the teachers paid, all the public servants there for providing the service, having them paid and supported with what they need to carry out their duties. And of course, you had to give high priority to servicing your public debt and all of these things. And on a restricted revenue stream, when those priorities are met, job creation and a job situation and your unemployment situation, those issues are dealt with by additional and continuous expenditure. So if you don't have things happening that require expenditure, you can't really say that you're treating with the unemployment situation, employment opportunity to be employed. So the overdraft was, if you consider the overdraft standing in water, times when the overdraft on our chin, where a lot of water and you begin to breathe. And that is, if a check issued by the government does bounce in a bank, you would know, then you will know about the grow. So every check that the government issues, whether it's for a salary or to pay a debt to a contractor, that has to be good. And running an overdraft system in your borrowing ability way up there is very uncomfortable, and it makes a lot of ministers don't sleep well at nights. And of course, maybe that's why the Prime Minister sleeps early in the morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we took a decision that after hearing a lot about the possibilities of the public-private partnership, that we would try to encourage the private sector, because you would see that there are certain private sector entities that do well. Every so often, they would announce how well they have done during the year in terms of earnings. It might not be the best year in its history, but some people in this country do well, notwithstanding what you might hear from some other people. And in the Ministry of Finance, to put in place a small unit, it's called a public-private partnership unit, where there are public servants, skilled public servants, who will assess the offerings of the private sector in terms of what they can do and whether it makes sense to enter into that arrangement. Because it's not something that is common in this country. And of course, it is not everybody who said that they will help you will help you up. Some will help you out of pocket. And therefore, you have to assess what is it the private sector can do. This project is one of those outcomes, because you would have heard from the minister how we, as a Ministry of Health, and that's only one ministry, a Ministry of Health, would have been moving all over Port of Spain, living from place to place like Ms. Howard Cat. But the bottom line is, you were paying some significant monies to occupy private sector entities and offering some of them substandard for all you know, and you pay good money for it. The government decided, first and foremost, that we will take care of the infrastructure that we have. So we spent a significant amount of public monies in a development program to restore our legacy buildings, and that includes the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Would you believe? The Parliament. One of the first decisions we took as a government was to ensure that a contract was awarded to allow the Parliament to be usable. It turned out that we couldn't go with one contract that was being attempted. We broke up that assignment into, I think, 18 different contracts, and UDICOT managed those 18 projects, and in short order, the work at the Parliament was completed, and the Parliament finally was made available for its original purpose, and we have been in the Parliament ever since. What that did is that it freed up other spaces that the Parliament was occupying, at the waterfront, and those spaces are now being occupied, a significant portion being occupied by the civil court, leaving the Hall of Justice to be expanded as a criminal court. So you have that expenditure on finishing the parliament had the knock-on effect of allowing more courts. All the civil works are now down the waterfront. So, benefit to be had. The boys in PRC couldn't go into the hall. The hall was dangerous. And of course, Mill Fleur was about to be an abandoned building. Gone. The hall in KRC, for those of you who managed to have gone to that particular school, I can tell you, it's not as good as the schools, but the hall is now taken for granted, back in use, and our children have access to the hall in that school. Some money spent there, some jobs created, and of course we didn't allow it to deteriorate to the point where it became engineering learned sound. The same thing happened, and we have in fact saved with the help of the Cuban government, and Mill Fleur is now one of Port of Spain. We did the same thing with Whitehall, we did the same thing with Stallmeyer Castle, and for those of you who know Queen's Palace, you will see the fine building which is now occupied by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is now in a top-class building, which used to be the old house that the Ministry of Agriculture used to occupy. So we've made all this. And of course, the crown, I should say, the state jewel, we took 9 truckloads of garbage out of President's house. Today, President's house hosts national events with splendor, and I dare say a bit of pomp, worthy of the nation's presidential residence. So all of these involved expenditure in a development program of one kind or another. But we did also have other programs in sport. We built a number of swimming pools, and we built a number of sporting facilities around from Diego Martin to Moruga. And only last week I was in Palo Seco, where UDCOT re-establishing the facility which was commonly known as the J.P. Smalls Velodrome in Palo Seco. Is going on, providing opportunities, providing employment, and will eventually give a facility which can be put to use. We also have a couple of hospitals on the way. We did one in Roxborough, that's completed. We did in 14, that's completed. We completed Arima, and Sangre Grande is well on the way and should be completed in the early part of next year. So all of these things have been going on. But this particular project is keen to tell you is that the government owns the property land, the land on which the building has to go. The government, after assessment went out, we got offerings, not very many, because the private sector is still very shy in coming forward in spending their money on these kinds of things. I think it's because the government and the taxman would know that they make money. But I'm pretty sure that what we're doing here would be a signal to many others of what is available and what can be done. The potential is good. The public servants did the assessment. The Ministry of Health, I want to congratulate the technical staff in the Ministry of Health who did human supportive work. Because believe me, if your subordinates, especially in the public service, are not sold on what the government, what the cabinet wants to do, they have 1,000,005 ways of not getting it done, just by being surly, being uncooperative, or being unexcited about it. You would not believe the power of the public servant. But in the Ministry of Health, the technical people who worked with the private sector entity and the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Health to get the cabinet to approve this project, I think they should be commended, because it's not something that they have been accustomed to. And for those of you who work with public servants or who are associated with public servants, you will know the default position of the public service is to tell you how it cannot be done. Not very many can tell you, well, okay, if it needs to be done, let's find a way to do it. And this project represents that second opinion arrangement where public servants agree that it could be done, and we found a way to do it, and let's get it done. And it's been done like clockwork. So therefore, we have discovered something here to allow private sector to raise the funding, carry the expense. There's a cost to it, of course, but carry the expense for a decade or so and allow the state to have the facility, and you pay down on it going forward, and eventually you complete the payment and it's yours. 15 years sounds like a long time. I've been in government for 8 years already. It looks like only yesterday. And of course, these sort of things, in the scheme of things, what is the alternative? Leaving it the way it is. You just heard from the minister, we are paying $1.2 million a month for rent to accommodate the Ministry of Health. You don't see that. But imagine that's $15 million a year, just for rent. And after 10 years, what's that? Minimum $150 million. So if you hear this building is going to cost $200 million or $240 million, just figure out what the rent will cost. At the end of 10 years of rent, what's the story? You still haven't got anything other than to rent. So ladies and gentlemen, we have a horizon at which this expenditure would deliver ownership of the structure, because you already own the land. That wasn't going to be, if we had to go buy a piece of land or buy this site, the cost of the fifth of the building would have been, the facility would have been much more. So we have other arrangements. We have other arrangements like this. And this was a learning experience, and I think we've done well. And I think the Ministry of Health, its staff, and the contractor who did this job need to be congratulated. So then we move on. Currently, there are other ministries and other situations where there's a problem. Right now, we have the Ministry of Social Development, which is a ministry that services the entire population with its support from that particular ministry. And it's in a rental building. Building is problematic for a variety of reasons. The cabinet has taken a decision that on another site in Port of Spain owned by the state, which is the old Printry site, that the possibility we are moving ahead. UDCOT has it as an assignment to go out again and to see whether the private sector would come forward in a similar way and give us the most competitive arrangement, because we do go out inviting those who have the ability to raise the funding and make it available on reasonable and competitive terms to come forward. We are going out there, if we haven't already gone out, because the cabinet has approved it, and very soon construction would take place on that site once we get an agreement and an acceptable offer, a construction which for maybe a year and a half or two would create employment, and at the end of it, the Ministry of Social Development would go home to us a building in Port of Spain where we can have the benefit of a contribution from the state and a major contribution from the private sector. So it works. In the next few weeks, I think it is, I am invited to turn the sod for another significant building, smaller in scale, but just as important. And that is an assessment center which we are aiming to build on what was the old foundry site. Those of you who knew the old Port of Spain, where the foundry used to be, if you remember what a foundry was, the government bought that site when I was Ministry of Housing. That site on the old Sandbach motor site, we bought those premises there. And the idea behind building that assessment center is to make sure that we have a place where people who put themselves or find themselves on the streets of the city of Port of Spain doing all kinds of things that are unpleasant and dangerous, that such persons will have a place if you are homeless in the city where you can be looked after and assessed, and of course restored to your location in some instances, and those who have mental issues can be properly looked after. And it is my expectation and the cabinet's instructions that once that building is complete and is able to cater for, I think it's approximately 240 persons or so, in good modern assessment facilities, that no person should be and would be encouraged to sleep on the streets of the city of Port. So there'd be no sleeping and no what goes on with that. So that project is well underway, and the construction, I passed there 2 days ago, I think it was, and I've seen the site is being hoarded, so construction should be underway there very soon. With respect to our other facilities that we've carried as a development program, I could list for you a number of community centers, which are fine facilities all over the country. You heard the Minister of Energy in Port-au-Prince South boasting about the one out the window. I could boast about the better ones in Diego Martin. And of course, across the country, we've had them. And you must have seen the videos of our geriatric population in the swimming pool, which many had never stepped in their lives, carrying on programs led by the Coast Guard and the Defense Force in a relationship between our trained personnel, our uniformed personnel, and community youngsters in Laventille, in Mova, in Maloney. And those are the kinds of facilities that we have been building, and each one built by a small contractor or a medium-sized contractor. And of course, as far as we are concerned, it's money well spent, because the purpose to which these facilities are being put is what contributes to our quality of life. So, ladies and gentlemen, we here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a passion for talking ourselves down and giving the impression that we are the worst of the lot. Unfortunately, I don't subscribe to that. I understand we have difficulties, so I'm the first to acknowledge that our financial situation is not the best. I'm the first to acknowledge that. Okay, every person doesn't earn as much as you need or as much as you would like to, but by the same token, we maintain significant employment levels on ratios that are better than many. We also have support, where in many instances there are people in other countries where there's no support available. You just catch a catch can. In Trinidad and Tobago, there's tremendous support that passes as entitlement. We could talk about free secondary education. In some countries, they don't talk about free primary education. We can talk about free services in the health center. You heard the minister talking about MRI and CAT as if, it's, you go down and buy a hospital and nobody's business. These are serious, high-level, cutting-edge services in hospitals that you pay through your nose for. Absolutely free, available in the hospitals. The public hospitals in Trinidad and Tobago provide services which could cost an individual $1 million or millions of dollars if you'd have those services in what is called certain developed countries. Recently, I saw one of my colleagues had to have some treatment abroad. Treatment is available in Trinidad and Tobago, but the person had it abroad. And when I heard the cost, it was just astounding. A member of my family is getting medical treatment, involves the use of certain medicine that's available here in our hospitals virtually for free. And I don't know how many of you would be able to pay 10 or 15,000 US dollars a month just for the medicine. That doesn't include the cost of the doctor. Because you'd have it abroad, you pay another 15 for the doctor. In Trinidad and Tobago, we take all of this for granted, and worse, when we take a little time off, it's only to badmouth the system, bad talk it. The hospital does 10,000 procedures a day. If it goes wrong, badmouth the whole system. And sometimes you wonder if the people who do these things, how do they feel knowing that there's such tremendous level of ingratitude for what goes on there? But every so often there's hope. You will see somebody taking time to put pen to paper to say, I've been to one of these hospitals and the staff was so good and the doctor was so good and the service was so good. Every so often one comes back to say that it has been done. I can tell you it is done thousands of times in our hospitals in Trinidad and Tobago. We're not perfect, but we are so much better than many others that this building, this head office building, symbolizes the good that is in the health system, that is the health system in Trinidad and Tobago. And all I ask, all I would ask the national community is to inform yourself about the extent to which we do have support in our country and acknowledge, not take it for granted. You get support with your water bills. You get support with your electricity bills. You get support with your fuel costs. And most citizens completely ignore these things and complain as if they were support. In Trinidad and Tobago, the social services over and above all of that. We pay out, what, $5 billion in cash every 12 months. $5 billion in cash is paid out to people who can't help themselves and who have a genuine need, and the state steps in and sends you a check. I don't see it being acknowledged. And you never hear about that. If one person has a complaint that a check was not made available or a check was late, then that is supposed to be how it is. Maybe the entitlement that we have to these things are things that we believe are birthrights. They're not. They are only available insofar as we can fund it and insofar that there's public policy to make it available. Unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago, there has been consistent public policy in providing support, either in the Social Service Ministry, the Education Ministry, the Ministry of Health, at TNTech, and at WASA. These are all examples of what we get every day. And I just want to make one other point, and there's a point of the reference about the payment of the health surcharge, which is for persons employed. There's a small charge that is deducted as health surcharge. And you would hear people say, I just pay health surcharge and I'm not getting this and I'm not getting that, as though the $200 they pay for the health surcharge is supposed to cover the cost of the $200,000 service that you get in the hospital if you have to go there. All of us eventually, all of us walk around knowing that sometime it doesn't take too much notice for you to realize that you need health care and the delivery of health service. And when you go there, the last thing in Trinidad and Tobago on your budget and on your stress is the cost of it. I could tell you, in the richest country in the world, the United States, there are millions of people who cannot say that their health care is taken care of. And health insurance is one of the most significant charges that have to be paid because everything is provided at a cost. In Trinidad and Tobago, you are spared that cost by the government allocation. And when you get sick and you head for the hospital, the fact that you do not have to think about the cost of the treatment or even the length of the service in the hospital. When you go to a hospital abroad, you want to come out as quickly as possible. Because every night you spend in there, every hour you spend in there, the dollar bill is ticking. In Trinidad and Tobago, we don't even take that into account because it is not a direct charge. It is support from the state to ensure the quality of life, we are able to fund revenues available. And I want to say that allocating the revenues to these things is not automatic. There are many countries that have much more revenue than we have, but they have different priorities. Different priorities. By the time they fund those priorities, Sometimes the priority is killing one another. By the time they finish funding that, there's nothing left for education and health. But in Trinidad and Tobago, fortunately, one, we never had that kind of priority listing. Our priority has always been to use the resources available to the state to contribute to the quality of life of the citizens. And that wasn't always so. Taking responsibility for ourselves did bring with it a significant improvement in the health system in Trinidad and Tobago, and it continues to be so. And I want to acknowledge the quality of the health system in Trinidad and Tobago. It's better than most, better than many. I distinctly recall as a school child, I was in primary school, when the major program in the Ministry of Health then was the eradication of yaws. I remember that, because I used to be asking my grandpa, what is that? I turned, and there were vehicles traveling through the community, Land Rovers, and the eradication of learning to read then. I was in the vehicle. Turns out that was our major priority. Today, I don't think our children know about that. We're talking about non-communicable diseases, lifestyle diseases. One of our biggest priorities now. How much you eat, what exercise you don't have. And of course, fortunately, who walk the hills of Mocha on the golf course. It's called exercise. And I'm so happy that at my age, I can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get to Mocha at daybreak and be at my office at 8:30 and spend the rest of the day. I'd encourage many to join that or find something to do, because it's far better than spending time drinking. Because, you know, a lot of people spend time at the rum shop and they drink and have a good day. Tell them what a wonderful time they had. I have a wonderful time on the golf course, especially when I get it right. You know? So we spend a lot of money now doing things that are the things that we should enjoy. We have the ability to enjoy public facilities that have not always been with us. We have the ability to protect the next generation by now to of those of us for the next generation. This building, engineering and so on, might last another 50 years or more if it's properly maintained. And therefore, I would like to Tobago, the public-private partnership arrangement. And you don't have to be a contractor like Elias and his contracting firm. You don't have to be a contractor. It's not just something for contractors. It is something for, if you to generate business, to increase our production, expand our infrastructure. If you have the idea to make that kind of contribution, and invariably it involves fund arrangement. Forward to the proposal, or if you see an invitation, a request for proposal, and you can raise the money, you can put technical people to manage a project, come forward to the Ministry of Finance, respond if you're so, and let us, people, government and private sector, that we can raise, or the finances that we have at our disposal, that some of it can be used to drive an economy which may not be able to maintain the same rate of growth that it was being maintained in all the finance. Private sector finance, not, but it brings growth, and those who put the finance always catch. There's profit raising and using the money. And as long as our monies are put to use, money on the move is the economy in growth that you have that is not being utilized or being utilized for the wrong purpose. That's when you get into difficulty. But if we direct you look at the central bank report, and you see how much money exists in the country, and you have to ask yourself, how much of it to use to grow? How much of it is somebody else's? People outside of our economy getting involved in doing things, financing things outside of Trinidad and Tobago. Hopefully they bring the back to Trinidad, but the bottom more that we can do available in the if the public-private becomes a concern. So on that score, I want to thank Mr. Elias and his team for doing this sometime early on, and we're satisfied with this, and we look forward to you and other contractors and other people who have access to fund when you got more, the better, because the competition will allow you to charge less, and we get the benefit of it. To get the job, and in the private partnership, the cost of the money is usually the deal breaker. How much will you charge for funding this project for 15 years, 10 years, as the case might be, as the project might require? And once you're into that, with more of the private sector, you then get the benefit of the competition. The Ministry of Finance does the same thing when we borrow. We go to banks and we ask, we need $1 billion or $500 million. The banks make you an offer. The offer is governed by the bank will charge for the money they're going to lend. And because you are able to lend to the government, that becomes a revenue area for the bank, and you fund the government's requirements. So it's not anything brand new to the government, because the minister does that all the time. In this case, we're talking here about infrastructure development, where it says, and you very well find that we're having so much difficulty in doing some things that this eventually, by its very eventually it might become the major model of infrastructure development in Trinidad and Tobago. So at this time, we simply want to say thanks and welcome to the staff, the premises. We'll keep these premises at the standard that have been delivered, and that coming in here should engender this pay inside such comfortable environment. Much, and we from the Ministry of Health.
Rowley, for your feature address. About management and Asclepius Holdings, and thanks especially to the Bank, Capital, and Martinez for your welcoming remarks. The Cabinet, executive health authorities, Industry and Commerce, thank you for the opening to prepare this site for today's ceremony, and thank us Wasafoli drummers and Mr. Joseph for regaling us. At this point in our program, we will now have followed by the unveiling of stone by the and his entourage.
Official opening ceremony for the Ministry of Health Administration. Plaque and ribbon cutting by Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Please